Hey, what is up guys, it's Ogre1993 here, and today's video is going to be an updated deck profile about my Paleo Frog deck. So I know that now our friend Totally Awesome is at 1, but the deck is still slightly playable, at least changing the version a little bit with a kind of a twist, I would say. So let's get started, but before we start, subscribe to the channel if you find interesting, and if you want to help me, give a like on the video. Follow Ogre1993 also on YouTube and on Instagram. Follow my competitive Yu-Gi-Oh team, the Omnia Players, both on Instagram and on Facebook, and download the Yu-Gi-Oh Duel Calculator application to check your life points. So let's get started and let's see what's the twist. So the twist, that it's not a twist for me actually, because I was playing this also before, is playing 3 copies of the Barrier statue of the Torrent. So this card is really good, at least if Mermail is not in the meta. I don't know what will happen in the future, if Mermail will hit and break in the meta, but for now there is kind of like no water deck relevant into the meta game. So playing this Barrier statue is pretty nice and will lock the opponent. So this deck revolves around playing the statue and protecting it as much as you can. Then 3 copies of Swap Frog. This is pretty standard. You want to play this in 3 copies, it's the main starter. If you see this also with a Barrier statue, you can decide to drop this into your graveyard with the effect of the Swap Frog, or you can just go into your Barrier statue and protecting it, as I said before, because sometimes it is more than enough to win your games. Then continuing with the Frog engine, we got 2 copies of the Dupe Frog and 2 copies of the Ronin Toad. So I know that the standard ratio for this is gonna be 3 copies of Dupe Frog, but I think that in this particular build it's more than fine. You don't want to maximize on the frogs anymore because you cannot do multiple Totally Awesome. So this ratio is pretty fine. And then that's it for the monsters, of course. Then for the spell cards, I'm running the one card of the Mice. I think that you have to play this card, at least in this version, because your goal, as I said before, is digging for the Barrier statue and placing the statue on the field and try to protect it as much as you can. And this card allowing you to draw 3 cards is really strong, even if it is limited. And then 2 copies of Pot's Duality. Sometimes can clash with the Swap Frog effect of special summoning. But once again, the main goal is the statue. So this card helps you to dig for the statue or for the demise, and that's pretty cool. And then the one Scapegoat and the one Raigeki in order to break some boards. If you're forced to go second, or if you draw the statue later in the turns, you can try to Raigeki and blow out the opponent's field and then put the statue. And the Scapegoat is so strong, plays around Red Reboot as well, and allows you to go into Boros Ward. Then for the trap cards, there are the majority of them. We got 3 copies of the Paleozoic Canadia. Of course, you want to play this. It's one of the best Paleozoic monsters available, allowing you to go into your Book of Moon effect. Then 3 copies of Olenoides. This card is pretty fine, MST effect, nothing to add about this. Then 3 copies of Hallucigenia, I don't know how to pronounce this in English. And this card is not played in the regular builds. For who doesn't know, this card is able to do the shrink effect, so it will halve the attack and defense of an opponent's monster. So basically it allows you to protect the statue even more. As you know, the opponent will be forced on their normal summon and try to clash on the statue, and then you can activate this and of course let the opponent's monster crash onto your statue. And then last but not least, the one Dinomicious. You won't have so many cards in your hand to discard, and you're also playing the card of the Mice, so 1 is more than fine. 2 can be bricky. Then 3 copies of Reckless Greed. This card is so strong. It's basically Pot of Greed, and it's super cool. If you see multiples of this, you can stack them on one another and draw like 4 or 6 cards by skipping only a couple of draw phases. Is pretty cool. Then 3 copies of Waboku. This is kind of like the best card of the deck. So if you start with statue plus Waboku, you can resist if you don't see the statue, you can resist with Waboku. There is no way that you lose the game when you activate this card. So this is one of the best pieces of the deck, and of course it's a trap card, so it can trigger also the Paleozoics. Then we got 3 copies of Trap Trick. Sorry for the proxy, still missing my third ultra rare Trap Trick. This card is so strong, allows you to go into Waboku, allows you to go into some other interesting tags that I have among the trap cards. Super cool. Then 2 copies of Lost Wind. You can play also 3, but with the Trap Trick is fine. Then a couple of impermanences. You can also play 3 if you have them, as you know, and as you can see, I don't have them, so just 2 also for that reason, but maybe 3 is better. And the 2 copies of the Mirror Force. So this Mirror Force is the one that allows you to bounce all the opponent's monsters, which are in attack position, and no one can see this coming. No one, literally no one. They build huge boards and then attack, and they will basically lose everything. And it's another protection for the Barrier Statue, of course, together with the Waboku and the Paleozoic Hallucigenia. Of course, also Canadia is so important in this version because it allows you to book the monster that they will normal summon in order to crash onto your statue. Then the Side token, this is absolutely necessary. Then moving into the extra deck, we got the one totally awesome. It's really bad having this at 1, especially now that the Master Rule 2020 is active. A lot of Paleozoics players were waiting in order to spam at least a couple of toads in turn 1 with a good hand, but now we can only play 1. It's pretty sad, but it's still such a strong of a card. You will always go into this in your first turn, and then you are kind of like forced to recycle itself in order to use it later in the mid-late game. Then the one Phantom Knights for the other rank 2s, so you have to play other rank 2s, of course, since you lost a couple of 3 toads. This one is pretty cool. You can lower the attack of an opponent's monster to 0, so it basically goes over everything. Another important card to go over some other problems is the Sky Cavalry Centaurea. Some people is playing Ningirsu, the War Chalice Link 3, to remove some hard to remove cards, but I think that this one is another good option and maybe much more easier to do. Then for the RXYZ monsters, we got the one Opabinia. You can play also 2 if you want, now that we have only 1 totally awesome, but I think that 1 is fine, you can add what you need there. Then the one Anomalocaris, some people is not playing this, but it's really strong. It's kind of like a Trident, but better. And then the last XYZ monster is the one Red Raptor, the ultimate Falcon for your Waking the Dragon into the side deck. A lot of decks have a lot of problems going over this card. Then for the fusions, we got another Waking the Dragon target, Naturia Exterio. So you can place these 2. You can also play the Last Warrior from Another Planet being reprinted on Dual Overload pack. They are pretty fine as well, but I think that these 2 are the best targets to play. Then other fusions targets for the super polymerization into the side deck are the Madragon of the Swamp and the, of course, Starving Venom. They have multiple uses. And then for the links, we got one Linkuribo, which is essential for your scapegoat play. The one Link Spider for the scapegoat play, but you can also turn any Paleozoics into this one. I don't know why you should do that though. Then the one IP Masquerina, once again for the scapegoat play. The one Marincess Coral Anemone. This card is so strong, being able to revive both the statue that you can drop maybe with your Swap Frog, and also the Swap Frogs themselves. Then the one Mr. Boy, so the basic field you go into is Mr. Boy plus, of course, the Totally Awesome, and the one Border Sword to end up with your extra deck lineup. This is really easy to do in this deck and can win games. Then for the side deck, we've got 3 copies of the this guy here, which is another Barrier Statue for you. For some people it's better, maybe you can run this into the main deck instead of the Barrier Statue. It's kind of like the same, but I prefer the statue since it's water, so You can also discard it for the frogs. Then 3 copies of the Ra Sphere mode. This is super cool because it's not a special summon. It's true that this will steal your normal summon, but it is a normal summon itself. So meaning that you can activate cards like Card of Demise and of course the Pot of Duality, add this with Duality and then drop it on the opponent's field, and he cannot do anything to stop this. Then a couple of Super Polies for the 2 targets that we have, of course, into the extra deck. A couple of Awakening Dragons. This card is really strong. Then a couple of Heavy Storm Duster if you meet some other trap-based strategy. Then 2 Anti-Spell Fragrance and the 1 Imperial Order, since we don't play a lot of spell cards. You can also side them out if you want, and I think that this lineup is pretty cool. So that's it for today. Let me know in the comments down below what you think about my updated Paleo deck, if you think it is viable anyway with the statues and the only copy of Totally Awesome. Let's hope that this card will come back to 2 at least, or 3 as soon as possible. So subscribe to the channel if not already, leave a like on the video if you find it informative. Consider supporting me by following Okram1993 both on Instagram, on YouTube, and on, of course, Facebook. Consider supporting my competitive Yu-Gi-Oh team, the Omnia Players, and download the Yu-Gi-Oh Duel Calculator application to check your life points. And see you in the next one.